Namaste Ji. May I welcome you this morning to my heart and to the temple of Kriya Yoga. This morning, I'd like to talk about the mastering of the mind. The key word is ABCM, or the alphabet ABC, mysticism, the ABC of mysticism. They really stand for four Sanskrit terms, the four functions of your mind. What all mysticism is about, what yoga is about, what all self-discipline is about, is one single thing: becoming a witness to what is flowing through your mind. Simple as that. It's a very simple process. The problem that makes it a little complicated for some people is that there are four functions in the mind, and we need to, as we watch the flow of the thoughts or the processes of the chitta, the mind stuff, to try to determine what function is manifesting at any given moment. Okay? What are the four functions? Well, A is ahamkara. Ego self would be a good way. Now, that's a difficult word because when we say ego, a lot of people say, negative, negative. It is the I awareness, the awareness that I am aware of what's going through my mind and some other people's minds, and at the same time, forgive my humor, and at the same time, awareness of being aware of myself, being aware of that which I am aware. Simply, I am awareness. Ahamkara. Aham is a Sanskrit word meaning I, and kara is a maker of. So ahamkara is the maker of the ego, the maker of the I sense. Okay? Like japakara, the maker of japa, or mantrakara, the maker of mantras, the creator of mantras, that sort of thing. So the first is A, is ahamkara, the I factor, the I maker, with quotes around it, the ego concept, but not ego in the sense of he has a large ego, but in the sense of self-awareness, even though the awareness of the self is erroneous, because most people think, oh, I'm my body, oh, I'm my mind, oh, I'm this thought, oh, I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm an American, I'm a German, I'm a Russian, that sort of thing. B is buddhi. Now, buddhi is simply that which knows, and really in a sense that which decides. It is not to be confused with Buddha or Lord Buddha. Buddhi is the discriminatory factor of the mind. Okay? C is chitta, translated usually as mind stuff. But here in the ABCs of mysticism, chitta is the storehouse of all our impressions. Subtle change there. Not the storehouse of our thoughts, but the storehouse of all our impressions. The thoughts are relatively unimportant on a deeper mystical level, as important as they are. It's the impressions that we link to it that makes a thing good or bad. Culturally, if I'm living in thin ice, I hope I'm not, is a Caucasian would say, she's a bad woman. And that means she's bad. But in subcultures, she's a bad woman, means she's really great. So it's the connotation as well as the carrying over of the impressions, I hate to use the word, but I'll use it, the emotions linked to the thought and thinking processes that are so vital in the memory track. Okay? ABC, M, ABC of mysticism. The M stands for manas, or simply the processing mind, the sensatory processes, the sense organs and all the things that link to the sense organ. Ahamkara, the eye maker, Buddha, that which discerns, judges, decides. Chitta, the storehouse of impressions, and manas, the processing mind or the sensatory. These are the four functions that function on the surface of our mind. And what we're trying to do is basically, as seekers of enlightenment, of seekers of wisdom, of seekers to attain happiness, to understand these four functions and to bring them into some sort of balancing process. Each function needs to be understood, and our goal at a later date is to coordinate them one with another, in other words, balancing them so one does not get out of balance, I guess. Now what we're trying to do is to see who and what we are. What are we? We are Jiva Atma. We are spirit, with a capital S in Western terms, that is embodied in a physical vehicle, and many other vehicles, but the one we're most aware of is our physical vehicle. What we're trying to do is move from a state of Jiva Atma, embodied spirit, into unembodied spirit without losing our self-awareness, without becoming unconscious. This is the difference between a human being and a mystic. A human being goes to sleep at night and basically becomes unconscious. Some people, and most women, have a dream awareness, which means they have greater evolutionary status than people who do not dream. The problem of dreaming and not dreaming is a question of suppression or not suppression. Most men do not dream in comparison to women. Why? Because they suppress things and they do not want to face it. I was taught, I'm not sure it's true, but I was taught that women, because of their biological nature, need to be more aware of their body and therefore more aware of themselves and what's functioning not only in their biology, but in the psychology that is closely linked in a woman's body. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. But I am quite aware that women have much more awareness in the dream state than men. In short, they have not suppressed as much. And I always use the same example of the man who's screaming at the top of his voice. Who's angry? I'm not angry. He's screaming at the top of his voice, and he doesn't know he's angry. And then, as my mother would say, when a woman's angry, she knows she's angry, and everybody else for 100 miles around knows she's angry. So there's a directness, really a good word, a truthfulness there. What we're trying to do is move into the mystic state, which is to say, to go into a subtler state of awareness without becoming unconscious. Now, in normal methodologies, it is simply at the end of the day, before you turn off your brain and go to sleep, is slow down and ask one question. Is there anything else I have to do today, or is there anything else I need to do today? And if the answer is yes, then do it. And if you're up till 3 o'clock in the morning, you're up till 3 o'clock in the morning. But at some point, for most of us, we have to say, I say Gunuk, enough. Gunuk is Gunuk, enough is enough. I've done with my solar activity. I've done with the day. I must now move from this external universe called the earth life and turn inward and upward to the real, subtler universe of my being, or of your being. If you do that, in other words, if you fall asleep slowly, very clearly, you will not rupture your consciousness, and you will have this unbelievable ability to see the inner universe and to balance it more easily, more rapidly, and more wisely. The trouble is, we crash into sleep, and unfortunately we crash out of sleep, if I'm allowed to use the word. People up and jump out of bed and they're running from the moment they get out of bed till they crash into sleep, running into the sleep state. And so, as Shelley would say to me back in the 40s, well, you know, Kriya, to be a good mystic, you got to be a bum. Slow down. Boy, I wish I had listened to him. We have to give ourselves a space between the solar phase, the day, everyday life, and the lunar phase, the inner world, the outer world, inner world, macrocosm, microcosm. There needs to be some space there. A quiet bath, burning a candle, meditating, savasana, relaxing, reading poetry, whatever it is. There needs to be a period of time with an awareness, and the awareness is, oh, I'm moving now from the outer world to the inner world. And the laws of life in the outer world and in the inner world are quite distinctively different. They're the same, forgive me for being difficult, but quite distinctively different. Next, we need to set our clock earlier. We need to be able to wake up and say, oh, I have this extra hour that I've never had before, and lie in bed for 10 minutes. Get up very slowly. Go get your glass of water that's room temperature and sip it very slowly. So you have plenty of time. You're heading to work 15, 20 minutes, a half hour early. You're always way ahead of yourself. If you're ahead of yourself most of the time, then you will find that life is not stressful, and you can distinguish very clearly, this is the important point, distinguish very clearly what's happening in your inner life and what's happening in the outer life. And because it is so clear, it is clear, forgive my humor, it becomes crystal clear that you can see there is a relationship between what one is thinking and what is happening in the world 3 days later, or there's a following process, a causal relationship, a linkage, a law of correspondence between our awareness of what we think and the events of what is happening in the external world, and also an attitudinal relationship. Two very vital factors. The all-important point of sadhana, spiritual discipline, I repeat, is to produce one thing, and that is to be able to be a witness unto your own mind, to witness that there are in each mind, and in your mind and my mind, 4 basic functions. And this is the important point of tarka, reflection, in which we simply draw our energies anywhere into our being, usually out of the legs and arms and trunk of our body, into the trunk of our body, into the spine, up the spine to the Ajna chakra. And then from the Ajna chakra, just go straight up until you're, 3 to 7 inches above your head, wherever is comfortable. A small piece of your consciousness is there, and you then turn around in consciousness, looking back down, not at your body, but at your mind. Not in any judgmental factor, but in a simple witnessing, simple awareness. What is my mind thinking? What is my mind doing? What is my mind emoting? What is my memory track doing? Go back to the ABCs, What is my ahamkara sensing? I'm no good, I'm terrible, I made a mistake, What is the buddhi discerning about what I am thinking and seeing? The chitta, what is the memory tracks being dragged up that have nothing really to do with today, but I'm making today yesterday because I've linked with my memory track. And obviously, the chitta, the mind stuff of trying to become more and more aware of what is passing, flowing through the mind, not in a judgmental sense, but simply in an awareness sense, and then classifying it. Which of the 4 functions are flowing now? And simply being aware over the days of trying to discern very clearly what is manifesting in my mind, and is any one of the 4 functions overriding the other functions, or are they all relatively balanced? Now, this witnessing, the word we use in yoga is observing. The other word we use, which I like better, is discerning. You're discerning what's flowing through your mind. Not trying to stop it. This is the point. As soon as you look at the mind stops. It stops. And it goes to something else. You have to yama na yama, which is, what was it about? Oh yes, non-judgmentalness of other people. Very hard thing to do. Non-judgmentalness of other people will ultimately respond in your not being judgmental of your mind. Looking at what's happening and not judging it, but discerning what it is, and basically being able to distinguish the four functions of your mind. This is the key point to what I call wisdom. It's a bridge. Wisdom to happiness, and that's what it's about on the earth life. Wisdom to stability, that's what it's about on the earth life. Wisdom is a bridge to strength, to deal with the karma manifesting. Wisdom is a bridge. It's a bridge that says it's not his fault, it's not her fault, it's not the Guru's fault, it's not God's fault, it's not the government's fault, nor is it my fault. It is the events of karma. And then being able to see them, we do have the power to soften them, to dissolve them away. Now people say to me all the time, well, that sounds like a lot of time. I'm a busy man, I'm a busy woman. I have 15 kids and 3 husbands to take care of, or something like that. And the answer is, okay, I understand that. You don't do this in a formal sitting down for 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes at night. You do it all day long. All day long while you're taking care of the kids and the husband or the spouse or the job or the boss. It's constantly. This is the value of discernment. You can do it all day long. And for most people it's too exhausting. But the exhausting is because all of our life we have pushed outward. It's saying the reality is out there. And the fact is, it isn't out there. It's inside you for you and inside me for me. And that's what we need to watch, and watch very, very closely. We need to turn around in consciousness, up here, turn around and observe. That turning around and being more aware of what's happening inside ourselves than external, for most people, is extremely, extremely exhausting. I wonder why. Well, habit, that's true, but is there another factor? Yes, there is. We don't want to see what's in our mind. We have some sort of, I don't want to say precondition, but I will say early childhood religious conditioning, that the world is good upstairs and bad downstairs, and I'm part of the downstairs and I'm bad. And we want to be good. And though you are good, people just seemingly cannot grasp that concept. I simply cannot grasp that concept. What's the problem? The problem is in the memory banks, the chitta, okay, in the memory banks, we have labeled ourselves, and that is a big no-no. That's really, really, really a big no-no. I'm a Swami, I'm a priest, I'm a mother, I'm a boss. I'm good, I'm bad. And the answer is, don't label yourself. Because as soon as you label yourself, then collecting around that one label will be a whole bunch of thoughts that these are good and these are bad. And that's what gets us into trouble. And therefore we say, but I want to be this and therefore I can't. Someone said to me once, it must be a decade or so ago, Kriya, I understand you live on a golf course. Yes, I live on a golf course. Well, I thought you were spiritual. Well, I don't know if I am or not, but what does that got to do with it? Well, no one near golf could possibly be spiritual. That's the label. And you see, therefore, he has closed off, or that person has closed off a large section of their life. And it blocks us in. It is really asat karma, Saturn karma, Sani karma, if you prefer. It is constrictive karma. And the whole process of mysticism and of yoga is to open up, to expand out into this cosmic consciousness of delimitation. But because we've labeled ourselves, we find it extremely hard. As soon as we turn inward and and we immediately start suppressing and pushing away these thoughts because it doesn't agree with our label. And so we have to relabel ourselves. And the answer I was taught almost 70 years ago, believe it or not, I am a seeker, and a seeker is after truth. What is truth? You are truth. Not your body that you have, not your mind that you have, not the thoughts that you utilize. No, none of these. You are simply spirit. Or, somewhat inaccurately, you are consciousness, trying to disengage yourself from being locked into this concept, I'm an earthling, I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm a yogi. You're not. You're none of these things. These are memory tracks from the past which we're trying to become free of so that we can have what is called Kaivalya. So that's, you listen to the tape, listen to it again. It's an extremely important concept. Self-observation, self-discernment, the word they used to use discrimination, but that's a bad word. When they were using the word discrimination, what they meant by that in yogic terms was to discriminate between that which is valuable and that which is not valuable, discriminating between what is useful and what is useless. And the word, because of a tremendous emotional, social concept, does not carry the proper denotation today. The goal is very easy. 1, to become happy. 2, to become content. 3, to become wise and walk across that bridge to conscious immortality. For many people, there's a step in between, which is simply softening the limiting thoughts we think. Okay? I think one of the yoga texts I read back in the late 40s, early 50s, I'm not sure, in Asia, talked about these 4 functions of the mind as being 4 spokes on a wheel. And obviously, therefore, there's a hub, and then there's the 4 spokes holding the rim. And this was called in Sanskrit Bharva Chakra, the wheel of your life. It keeps spinning around. It's a symbolism of the cosmic horoscope as well as your individual horoscope. But the spokes of the 4 functions of the mind, which there in Asia used to be called the spokes of the wheel of life, the hub is what we're after. The hub is that consciousness that transcends and allows us to transcend these 4 functions. In other words, as we transcend these 4 functions, we transcend mind stuff. We transcend the mind itself and the mind's reflection and move out of mind states into consciousness. And as we do that, we become freer and freer and freer. The whole idea is to get to the hub, to be the awareness of that which you're aware, to become the hearer of that which is heard, to become the seer of that which is seen, become the meditator of that upon which you meditate. So, what's the next step? Next step is quite obvious, is that as we are observing the imbalance of our mind, we have to ask ourselves 2 or 3 things. 1, can I somehow, simplify my life? Can I somehow simplify my life? And the answer is this is what we all need to do. Easier said than done. How do we simplify our life? Each person has to look at the life and say, is this useful or useless? Is this helpful or, forgive me, damning to my goal? What is the goal? It doesn't matter if it's happiness, if it's wisdom, insight, enlightenment, freedom. It's about becoming freer, but not freer from mother and from father, not freer from the guru, not freer from anything other than a set of concepts, of labels that we are holding in our mind and the ego refuses to eject. If you're a banker, you think like a banker. And it's very hard, if you're a policeman, you think like a policeman. But as the policeman and the banker goes home at night, he forgets that he's a husband. Or in these modern days, she forgets that she's a wife. And the label that works during the day doesn't work at home. And definitely the label that works at home and at work does not work in the inner world of the dream state or the astral state or the meditative state or the samadhi state. The whole process of discerning what's happening is quite simple. You simply, as I say, gather yourself, bring a small amount of your consciousness up above your head, turn that consciousness around in consciousness, looking down at the mind, and leave it there for the rest of eternity. Simply observing, not judging. And this is why we talk and have talked so often about the necessity of trying to be fairer and fairer and fairer and fairer to people, gentler and gentler and gentler with people, until at some point it becomes ridiculous and you realize some external action has to be taken, as in this case this morning. Okay? Observe your individual thoughts. Do not do anything other than to say neti, neti, neti. I'm not this thought flowing through my mind. I'm not my mind. I'm not that thought saying I'm not this thought and I'm not my mind. I am not thought. Observe your thoughts without judgmental. Now obviously your mind and my mind are very judgmental, and it's those judgmentalnesses that we become aware of while we're doing the process that we need to then start journaling, making little notes in a book, and look at them later when we have more time. It's called tarka, T-R-K-A, tarka, reflecting on them and saying, now, again, are these helpful, are these useful, or are these useless? Always directed towards what your goal in life is about. What are you trying to accomplish? Most people are just trying to get through the day. That's all. That's why their life is, I guess, non-productive, if that's the right word to do. They're just trying to get through the day. And if you ask them, they simply say, I'm powerless. God doesn't want it to me, or he'd, given me wings if he wanted me to fly. And he said, no, he gave you a mind to make wings so you could fly, but people can't make that psychological jump. You go back to the concept of karma. You are the master of your life. The problem is if you say, I want something, like I want a baby, the baby does not manifest in 3 seconds or 3 days. It manifests around 9 months. Observing, non-judging. Second step, labeling it, as I said. You need to label the thought. And then third step, which is the big step, letting go of any clinging to any thought that's flowing through your mind. This is so important because if you can let go of the thoughts through your mind, you become free from the thoughts. Someone just the other day, I read it again on Tribune, I think it was the Tribune, that some man killed a woman, and he said, but God told me to. And just a few days later, some woman killed a man and said, but God told me to. Now, this is the problem. All people have is their thoughts, and when the thought says do that, they do it. They think that is the final awareness or the final judgmentalness, and it's called being psychotic, really having a medical problem. Mysticism is one of the ways of increasing one's mental, spiritual health, where they say, no, 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 the thought flows through, and the thought may say do this, which is right or wrong, good or bad, dangerous or not dangerous, destructive or not destructive, but we have this awareness factor. Neti, neti, neti. I'm not this thought, and therefore I do not have to respond to it. And that is demagnetizing the power of all thought. Once you reach that state, all thought. And it doesn't mean one cannot defend oneself. It doesn't mean that one cannot chastise someone who needs to be chastised. But recognizing it is not due to emotionality, but basically due to the realization that it's something other than a thought saying, this I must do. Easier said than done. What are the simple process? Observing individual thoughts without judging them, labeling them under the 4 functions of the mind stuff. 3, letting go of any clinging to any thought. And again, here, Tarka, it comes into a place where you judge something. You write into your book something that you're clinging to, and then you have to ask, why is my mind clinging to this? And usually it'll bring you back to a label, if I can go back to my concept. It's a label. Oh, this is what I am. And that affirms that that's what I am. Oh, yummy, yummy, yummy. Well, it's a terrible thought because that's not what I am. So again, forgive me, we need to erase the label. You know, the problem with religion, and many people that come into spirituality and mysticism come from a religious background, and religious background is nothing but from a self-glorification to a greater self-glorification. And we have to delabel ourselves. We are seekers, period. And as Shelley said when I said to him after he spoke for 30 hours without stopping and still remembered what my question was, I said, wow. And he looked at me and said, I'm really quite ignorant. And we had a little discussion there. And the answer at the end was, Kriyananda, to you what I said may be enormous and impressive, but as I look out into the universe, it's a flake of dust on a flake of dust on a flake of dust on a broken piece of sand. And he's right. It is, forgive me, relative. Repeat. Observe your individual thoughts without judging them. Be aware of them. Label them. Note them in a book. Note which ones you are clinging to. Think about them and decide what you're going to do to break the hold. Once you even break one major emotional clinging to a thought, you've really, to a very great degree, demagnetized the power of your thought. And when you do that, then you don't have to worry about your emotionality, because the emotionality is always manifesting in thought patterns. And therefore you can say, oh yeah, my mind's crazy again this morning. Yep, it's crazy this morning. I don't have to listen to it. I think I'll go meditate. I think I'll take a hot bath. I think I'll read a good book. I think I'll listen to soft music. I think I'll observe my mind a little more closely. So all of this is back to what I said, simplifying your life physically. Calming your mind is a sub-step of that. How do you calm the mind? 3 things. Drink more water. First thing in the morning you get up, before you do just about anything, you should sip. Sip is the key word. A cool glass of water, room temperature. It should not be cold, it should not be hot. The last thing you do at night, the very last thing you do at night, is sip another glass of water. Sip is the key word. Okay. In between, a lot of more water. To the degree that we are dehydrated, which most people are, to that degree, the body will be irritated. Secondly, second sub-level, we need to observe what we eat. And as the yoga says, don't eat too much and don't stop eating. They have consequences. You need to determine what foods calm your mind, cooling foods as they're sometimes called, and what foods irritate your mind. And obviously, stay away from those. Sub point, people. There's a reason they have monasteries and ashrams and caves, because there's nobody in the cave but you and nobody in the cave but me. We have to learn, as hard as it is, to deal with people. The reason we all have come out of our cave or our ashram is we decided we want to grow rapidly, unfold spiritually rapidly, mature if you prefer. It's the word I prefer. And the answer is, the more people around you, the more challenges, the more rapidly you will collapse or you'll grow. So it's not a bad thing, it's a good thing. But somehow all of this boils down to one simple process during the day. Give yourself psychic space. Now there are people who take up a lot of psychic space, and it would be better to stay as far away from them as you possibly can until you strengthen your aura and your personality. In the process of wanting to be happy, which is usually the first step, the next step is contentment, next step is the bridge of wisdom. But in wanting to be happy, I think there's this understanding, as we observe what's flowing through our mind, we're going to make a evaluation. And the evaluation, is this thought that's flowing through my mind destructive or constructive to happiness, to my happiness? Let's make it very personal. And the answer, if it's constructive, feed it. Make a mantra out of it. Chant it. Visualize it. Hang up a picture. Dance with it. Sing to it. Regenerate over and over again. Okay? One way is, if you have a positive thought, simply ask yourself, what is the color? And let's say the color's red, then always wear something red. Even a little red triangle that's next to your skin, Carry something in your purse that's red, that sort of thing. Obviously, most of us have this large pool of destructive, shall we call them negative thinking patterns. And as we see these, as they begin to arise, because we're aware of them, at the same time that we're not interfering with them, we insert a positive affirmation. Two things. A, neti, neti, neti. This is vital. This is vital. This is absolutely vital. What you're saying is, yes, this is a negative thought, but I am not negative. I am not thought. I am not negative. And if you do that enough times, you'll say, yep, my mind's negative, but I'm not. And that will produce a much healthier, much healthier self-imagery. And this is important, because if one has low self-imagery, what will manifest is a feeling, I don't deserve anything, and we'll put infinite number of obstacles in our way to be sure that they do not manifest. Secondly, we need to put a counter thought. When we see a negative thought beginning to develop in the mind, flowing into the mind, we need to watch the thought, let it flow, already saying neti, 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 then put to it a counter thought. If it's a thought of hate, then you have to put a thought of love, unselfish love in a way. If it's a thought of ignorance, then you have to put a thought of wisdom in its way. And you have to override it. So if you're thinking it for 5 seconds negativity, then maybe 25 seconds positively. Either that or increase the intensity of the positive thought to neutralize. It's just a matter of learning. You do not say to the dog or the kitty, kitty. You don't do that. The cat will not come. The cat is distracted. You and I, our minds are distracted. And so, we have to do what we call japa. Every day and every way I'm becoming more and more positive. Every day and every day the thoughts flowing through my mind are more and more positive. Whatever method, or just a positive Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. Dissolving away the negativity, or Heyadam, Jayadam, Jai Jayadam, Heyadam, Jayadam, Jai Jayadam. Positivity of strength to override the negativity, until in constantly doing this through the day, informal spiritual development, we are preparing our mind so in the evening when we go into our formal sadhana, our formal practices, we can go much deeper, much higher, and become freer and freer. All this produces a simple thing, kavalya, freedom, liberation from the confinements of the thoughts that we have carried from the past. And this allows us to go deeper into, I would call, attaining meditation, which most people do not do. Yes, I think those are the key ideas or thought that I had in mind. In closing, I think that I need to stress a couple of factors. One is that discerning your thoughts or becoming the witness of your thoughts does not mean any type of psychological suppression, repression of any emotion. Quite to the contrary, what we're trying to accomplish is to bring up the garbage if you prefer, from our subconscious. And this is not pleasant. It really isn't. It really isn't. You know, you shake your head and say, oh my God, I didn't know that was down there, that fear, that anger, and so forth. And the answer is, what people do not understand, really, is they think if they can't see it, it can't hurt them. They think by suppressing it, they're rid of it and they're free of it. And just the opposite is true. An emotion is like a giant spring. And what people do is they suppress it, press, until it is suppressed or repressed and locked in. And they think, oh, it's gone. And the answer is no, it's there 10,000 times more dangerous, because at some moment, some event, some thought is going to release the spring, and all that energy is going to explode and cause serious destruction into our life and our values and our relationships. So we should not do any suppression or repression of emotions or of thoughts. We need to see them. And again, the magic watchword is neti, neti, neti. I am not this thought. I'm not these thoughts. I'm not this emotion. I'm not that emotion. I'm not emotion. Aham brahmasmi. I am the reality beyond manifested words, thoughts, and emotions. It goes back again. Depending, you have to ask a question. Forgive me. Each one of you need to ask yourself, and right now is a good time to do this, what are you trying to accomplish in this very lifetime? Or even, what are you trying to accomplish today, this week, this month, this year, this lifetime, this incarnation? Everything depends upon what you are trying to accomplish. And then, once you know what you're trying to accomplish, it becomes very clear, are the thoughts I'm thinking helpful or a hindrance to that goal? But if you don't know what your goal is, then useful and useless is meaningless. Harmful and harmless is meaningless. And so we have to ask ourselves, what am I trying to accomplish? And again, I don't know why, but Americans in particular have a great deal of difficulty. I think more and more around the world, modern people around the world, have difficulties of knowing what they want. And so the answer is, what do you not want to bring into this lifetime? What do you not want? And that way, write that in the book. And in doing that very easily, and I think very, very clearly, you will see what is destructive and constructive to your goal. It will be really, very, very helpful. I think next to the last thought is, you really need to be honest with yourself. We're now back to Satyam, one of those yama principles. Try to be honest with people without compromising yourself. But you need to be honest. As Shelley said to me back in the 40s, Kriyananda, he caught me in a lie. And I was very embarrassed. I thought I had disguised it so cleverly. And he spotted it even before I started it. And he said, you know, Kriyananda, it's okay to lie to me. I don't mind. That's all right. It's okay to lie to me. Matter of fact, my beloved one, you know, really, you can even lie to God. It won't bother him either. Then he got very fierce and he said, but never, ever lie to yourself. Don't ever lie to yourself. He said with a deep scorpion voice. He scared me. So I'm saying the same thing. Honesty, satyam, is what it's about. Honesty in life, in dealing with people, in speaking, is not for other people. I must say, you know, because there are bad people out there. Salesmen is what I call them symbolically, and they can hurt you. Do not compromise yourself, but always within your mind. Be honest with yourself. So when you see a negative thought, you know it's negative, and don't blame mother or father or uncle or aunt or God or guru or somebody. It's your thought. You bumped into it. That's all. You don't have to own it. You don't have to possess it. You have to usually get rid of it. The whole goal of meditation is not getting things, which is what the world's about, but getting rid of things, the attachment to the thoughts we think. Repeating myself, you need to promote your positive, or if you will, your useful thoughts. Stop feeding negativity or negative thoughts or non-useful thoughts. It's called dedication. It's all about the process of witnessing or discerning what's happening in your mind. Discernment or witnessing is very simple. It's observing with non-attachment. It's just not observing. Witnessing is not just observing. It's only when you observe and are non-attached to what you see and honest with what you see that you are witnessing or discerning what's happening in your mind. I think the last point here, I think there's a wall between you and the Atma that you are. There's a wall between your mind and your Atma. There's a wall between you and the cosmic mind. There's a wall between you and everything else that exists in the universe. And that wall is called your mind for you. Discern, ascend, neutralize, be free. Namaste, my beloved.